Well, good evening, beautiful friends. Welcome to another edition, not just another edition, episode 30. We've hit a milestone of Love Not Fear. I'm Jack Cox, and I'm here with my usual co host, Paul Simon Smith, who runs the Nutrient Nirvana supplement company, and the links to it are down below in the description. Well, they will be. So, Paul, you were telling me before we went live, you were telling me some rather exciting news about a shop.
Yeah, for my business. So I've kind of linked up with a company called Purple Phoenix in my area. They've just opened up a little shop in a craft village, and I'm going to be selling all my products there, which is very exciting. And they're a very interesting couple of ladies. They hold spiritual nights and tarot readings and shamanic drumming and all that type of thing. And they sell crystals and all sorts of lovely ornaments, really nice, tasty ornaments and stuff. So fingers crossed, that's going to propel me further with the business, hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah. That's all
Yeah,
the stuff I used to sell in my shop when I had my shop many years ago. So, yeah,
Where was
works
that?
hopefully. Sorry?
Where was your shop?
I had a shop in Lowestoft many years ago.
Oh, okay, yeah, I know, Suffolk, yeah.
Yeah, I sold all that kind of stuff. Yeah, no, that was good. That's good.
You've done loads, mate. You've done loads. Every time we do an episode, you reveal a new chapter of your life that's happened, and I know nothing about it at all. It's
at one point I had two shops in London, one in the East End and one in Erith. And then we got rid of those and we moved to Lowestoft, and we got a big shop on the corner in Lowestoft. Oh, it's a long time ago, years and years and years ago. And we had a wonderful time there, paying a peppercorn rent because the area was due for remodeling, and the shop was going to be demolished.
Oh, okay.
So they just wanted somebody in for a couple of years, 2 or 3 years before it was demolished.
Yeah.
So we got peppercorn rent. And yeah, it was a fantastic experience, absolutely fantastic experience. So you all have great fun in your shop.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I will be there, not all the time, but I'll probably do 3 or 4 afternoons or something down there. And it'd be nice to actually talk to people, because I've been very much selling my stuff on social media. So this is like going back to, the old days, old school, whatever, where you actually meet and greet people and tell them about the products and how they can help them. So, yeah, I'm really excited for it.
Yeah, I've also started this week. I've started an online shop.
Okay.
Called Unearth Tarot and Crystals.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Which should be fully up and running in a couple of days.
Brilliant. Somebody's just commented, Jack, and said we've got no sound.
Oh, Catherine, we've got no sound. Okay, why is that? Why is that? I can hear you and you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear each other.
I think the problem might be at your end, Catherine, because everything seems to be good here.
Yeah. If anyone else can comment and say whether they can hear us or not, we'd appreciate it.
They can't hear you. If they can't hear us, they haven't heard that question.
Well, yeah, true, yeah. If you can't hear us, let us know.
Right, I might get a little bit of feedback on this, so bear with me. But I'm going to go onto YouTube now and just see whether it's working. Just see whether it's working.
Anyway, while he's doing that, my company sells vitamin D3, vitamin C in the form of ascorbic acid.
Anyway, while he's doing that,
magnesium.
my company sells vitamin D3.
Yeah.
We got sound on YouTube. Let's just see if we got
good.
sound on. Let's just see if we got sound on Facebook.
The magnesium I sell is contains 4 different types of magnesium, so it's a blend of highly bioavailable magnesiums. Having really good feedback with that. And iodine, I make and sell iodine, Lugol's iodine, which is great for so many things. We've got adaptogenic herbs like ashwagandha, astragalus, maca, dongwei, Celtic sea salt, cacao, chocolate, all sorts of goodies on there.
Yeah, we've got sound everywhere. So
Yeah.
let me just type a little message in here. Yeah. She won't hear us, will she?
No, that's odd. Maybe she's on mute and doesn't realise it. Catherine, can you hear us still, or can you not hear us? Let us know. Give us an update if you can, Catherine. If you haven't buggered off because you can't hear nothing. By the way, I'm growing a beard, everyone. What's the verdict? Oh, it's Catherine's fault. That's all right, Catherine. Don't worry. Catherine's just said it's my fault. She may have muted herself.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, was that in? Okay, we forgive you, Catherine. No worries.
So it's a bit of excitement, wasn't it, at the start of the show?
Yeah.
It was this end. Yeah. Okay, Catherine. No problem. Thanks for letting us know. Thanks for letting us know.
The beard is turning out to be a Jack Cox tribute beard because it's the same colour. So
I think mine might be a bit whiter, mate.
Does it stop itching after a while, Jack? Because I'm about 3-4 weeks in now and it's still a bit itchy.
Oh, mine doesn't itch.
No? Oh, well, I'll stick with it for a bit longer then.
But then I've had mine now for years, so I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I grew it when I came out of the army when I was 27.
And you've had a beard ever since? Wow.
I've had a beard ever since, long before they were fashionable. I just said, blow this, we're going for soldiers. I'm not shaving anymore. and I didn't. So
yeah, I don't miss shaving. I've got to be honest.
I'm just too lazy to shave. That's all it is.
Yeah,
it's not a fashion statement. I used to say it gives me something to hide behind.
Yeah. I think this makes me look a bit older, maybe. I don't know. It's my birthday tomorrow, by the way.
Oh, happy birthday for tomorrow, mate.
Cheers, mate. 47 tomorrow.
Oh, no.
What's
You
wrong
got
with
the old git.
And if you want to know how old Jack is, reverse the numbers. And put a 1 on the front.
70 in June, mate. 70 in June.
Big
anyway, if you all want to know where I am, I'm having a wonderful time in Glastonbury, which is why the studio looks a bit posher than my usual one. I've been here for a couple of weeks now, having a wonderful time, house sitting for some friends, some very good friends, and looking after cats.
Lovely.
If you hear any cats screaming in the background, there is plenty of food down for them, but they've decided they don't want that. They want me to put something fresh down for them. And I'm saying, no, you can eat up what's down there.
Exactly. Cats are grazers anyway, in my experience, Yeah.
Well, these ones are very, very fussy. Or one of them isn't. One of them normally finishes off what the other ones leave. So, but he hasn't gone today. Even he's turning his nose up at it. So, I'm just making them suffer until bedtime, so you can eat up what's already down there for them. I'm a cruel, heartless man.
Just quickly, Jack. Thank you, Catherine and Karen, for wishing me a happy birthday tomorrow. Cheers. Yeah, they lose their significance as you get older, I think, a little bit. But I'm going out for a meal tomorrow night, so I'm going to celebrate it. I must admit, I don't feel any older. 47. I don't really feel any older. But there we go.
Yeah, well, you look a lot older, mate. I tell you.
He can't see. Look, I can do that because he can't see. He's not looking.
Anybody who wants to ask a question and phone in is very welcome to do so. I haven't got the phone set up because I'm away, but it will come through on here, and the microphone picks it up. So if you want to phone any questions in, you're welcome to do so.
Yep.
I've just been down to St John the Baptist Church in the High Street here in Glastonbury.
Yeah, I know it.
For a gong bath. So if I look a little bit spaced out, that's probably right.
No more than usual, Jack.
What do you mean I'm always spaced out? It was beautiful. It was beautiful. But I must just say, I don't want to put a negative note in, but I must just say that it would have been great in a small room. In that church, the sound was rather lost in the space.
Right.
But it was still beautiful, and I actually dozed off in the middle of it, and came out of it having had a little dream.
Nice.
I wasn't drunk, honest. Which leads me rather on, because if you remember a couple of weeks ago, I was talking about sound healing.
Yep.
And I said I was going to do a big one on sound healing in a future episode.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've decided not to do that because, why use up a good thing in just one episode? So what I've arranged is to do a small segment on sound healing in every episode.
Okay, yeah.
For the next few weeks.
Hmm.
So I just made a few notes, if I can find them.
Of course, the ancients took sound healing very seriously. Also, it would appear with a lot of their temples in Egypt.
Yeah.
The acoustics are amazing in some of those temples and the pyramids. So there was something going on with it there.
I'm just going to take a drink of my coffee. Cheers. It is only coffee, honest. There's no brandy in it. And because I've only just got in time to do this show. I'm going to talk about the Oracle Chamber in Malta.
Oh, okay.
Very
interesting place.
It is. Have you been there? Have you been there?
Never been to Malta. I'd like to go because there's a lot of ancient ruins there and loads to see.
Yeah, it's one of the things I'd like to do. It's one thing I've not actually got round to yet, but it's on my bucket list. So I've just made a few notes here to talk about the Oracle Chamber. A 5,200 year underground temple where a word spoken is magnified 100-fold and is audible through the entire structure. You just try and imagine that. The effect upon the listener must have been deeply profound. When the oracle spoke, words came thundering forth. I like that expression, thundering forth. Through the dark and mysterious place. And it must have made a huge impression on the audience here. Now, I'm going to crucify the pronunciation of this, and if you can do any better, Paul, then please do jump in. But Malta's a subterranean Hal Safilini Hippogem. Anything right? Anything near close? I don't know.
It sounds good enough to me.
Yeah, no one's going to know any different, are they? I expect somebody will. Someone's going to pull me up on it. And it's still intact after more than 5,000 years. The site's architectural features not only mirror the above-ground megalithic buildings, but also imply a deep understanding of acoustics. Could it be a natural phenomenon, or do you think it was
a couple of things. I would suspect that it was deliberate because there are so many, as I previously mentioned, so many other temples, ancient temples all over the world, particularly in Egypt, but all over the world, that appear to have very interesting acoustic properties. Couple of things, mate. I would say that the dating of that place, I immediately thought I'm a bit skeptical, only because when you ask a historian or an academic, when were the pyramids built? When was Stonehenge built? When was Avebury built? When was this, that, and the other built? And the answer always comes back 2,500 BC. 2000. You don't need to be a historian. You just need to say 2,500 BC. That's what they put it all down to. And I personally think a lot of these places and sites are far older.
I agree with you. It could have been a lot older. This would, of course, have been 3,200 BCE, but
you said 5,200 years old.
Yeah.
So it's 2,000.
No, I said 3,200. So
yeah. Oh, did you?
Yeah. Anyway, let's not bitch about the numbers.
Yeah.
The point is, it's very, very impressive, and I want to go there.
What's it called again, Jack?
Don't go there. If you can do better than me,
I'd have to see the word to read it out.
Well, if I'd have had the time, if I wasn't rushed today, I'd have listened to it a few times on YouTube and got the pronunciation, rather than just trying to do it from the.
It didn't sound bad. Of course, you've got the walls of Jericho as well in the Bible, haven't you, with the trumpets?
Well, absolutely.
Is that alluding to sound technology?
Well, I think it probably is. Well, I mean, we know, don't we, that if we know by the breaking of a glass, a singer and the breaking of a glass, that if we can make a sound that matches the resonant frequency of the object, it falls apart. So why shouldn't you do that with walls? And indeed, the military-industrial complex are experimenting with that technology now. And they're actually using it in America and some other places for crowd dispersal.
Yeah, and they did that in Australia recently. And there was kids affected by it with scald marks on their skin and all sorts.
And nosebleeds. So,
yeah, it's been turned against us now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So was it prompted by the desire to manipulate sound effects in a ritual context? And I believe it was. Preliminary research in the field of archoacoustics has shown that New Grange and other ancient stone chambers, and the ones in Egypt that you mentioned, Paul, resonate within a very narrow range between 90 and 120 hertz. According to studies, exposure to a tone within this frequency, particularly 110 hertz, seems to create a shifting of brain function, stimulating an area of the brain that biobehavioral scientists believe relates to mood, empathy, and social behavior.
Wow.
A room in the temple, popularly known as the Oracle Chamber, has its strongest resonance at precisely 110 hertz. Now, I'm just going to find this slide I used 2 weeks ago. And see what this says about 110 hertz. It doesn't even mention it.
Yeah.
It doesn't even mention it. Anyway, it's okay. Buddhists and Hindu chants chant their mantras in the same frequency. A structure that resonates at 110 hertz would allow enhanced healing, meditation, as well as stimulating art, poetry, sensuality, spirituality, feelings, imagination, and innovation.
Wow.
Well, that's the end of my notes. So, I think the thing was put there deliberately It was a ritual. It was a temple. It was a ritual space where people would go, and the message from the oracle would resonate throughout the temple at a particular frequency that affects the body and the psyche of the listener.
Mm.
And if it's anything like the sound healing that I've had today, it really, you can feel it vibrating through your whole body.
Mm.
Where people go wrong with sound healing is that they put headphones on and it just goes into the ears.
Mm.
But it's supposed to. Sorry?
Yeah, it needs to go through the whole. You need to feel it through your whole body, don't you?
You need to feel it through the whole body.
Mm.
I'm certainly intending to do more research into this and to do more experimenting.
It wouldn't surprise me if it's something that we've lost at some point along the way, that everyone was aware of this at one point in history and it was used everywhere and it's been deliberately taken from us.
Yes. Okay. Would you like to elaborate on deliberately?
It's been, should I say, conveniently lost then?
Conveniently lost. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think we've become, we've gone down other channels, haven't we, over the last 100 years, a couple of 100 years. We've been directed down different channels. We're supposed to believe that anything that's effective has to cost a whole ton of money. And it has to come from big pharma or big industry. And we're starting to remember, I mean, an awful lot of stuff has come from India with and Tibet, particularly with the singing bowls. And the more that's come to the West, the more we've started to think, oh no, we used to know this stuff. Why don't we know this stuff anymore?
Yeah.
And we're starting to learn from these people who we used to look, well, not personally, but society used to look down on as being primitive, and to start realizing that they're not. They have a technology, they have several technologies that are way in advance of anything we have in the West.
Yeah.
And we've been despising it, or we've been conned into despising it.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. Totally agree. It's definitely something that we had. And although I've not experienced it yet for myself, hopefully I'll get around to that in the near future. I know a couple of people on Facebook that do it in my local area, and they speak very highly of it. And yeah, it reminds me of a Hawkwind song. There's a rock band from the 70s called Hawkwind, and they did a song called "We Took the Wrong Step" years ago.
Yeah,
and it's a really good song. The lyrics are great, and whether we took the wrong step years ago or we were coerced to take the wrong step, guided down the wrong road, I suspect. But yeah, we've definitely lost an awful lot.
Just the music that we listen to, it can affect us in two different ways, can't it?
Absolutely.
To start with, being programmed by the words. And I've identified, because I used to, when I was a kid, oh yeah, I can remember back that far. When I was a kid, the only way my dad could get me up in the morning was to put my radio on loud. And I'd wake up, and you're the most susceptible while you're just waking up and while you're just falling asleep. While you're passing through theta.
Yep.
We're picking all this nonsense up subliminally. The Rolling Stones with, you can't always get what you want, and you can't get no satisfaction, and all this sort of stuff. And there were all these sad love songs at the time, if you remember. I'm talking about the mid-60s now. When
I don't remember.
No, you don't remember. You've heard of them.
I know a lot of the songs because my mum and dad were big '60s music fan, so I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
You've read about it in history books, I know.
Yeah.
And I was being programmed by all this.
Yep.
So what I've started to do now is I've made up a tape of affirmations, which I play all night. Because I tend to wake up a couple of times in the night for a pee. Now I'm getting older. So I'm coming in and out of theta sort of 4 times in a night.
Yeah.
And I'm picking up on the good affirmations.
That's really good, mate.
So I think that's very important. I've been doing it for about 6 months now. And the other way that music affects us is the actual tones, the actual music.
Yep. Are you going to talk about how they changed the frequency of all the notes in the Western modal scale, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and the sharps and flats, etc. They were all slightly altered from, I think it was 432 to 440 hertz, and that change made a huge effect on how the music affected us. That happened, I think, around the turn of the Second World War, if I remember rightly. But that's a big thing as well.
Do you know any more about that?
I would have to read up on it to be able to explain it scientifically, but it's that's definitely something that they did in around about the middle of the last centuries. They changed the frequency of the notes in Western music, only very slightly, but it had a big impact and difference on how we feel the music, how we respond to it. And if I haven't got a TV, Jack, as you know, but if I ever see the TV, inevitably you're bombarded by adverts when you turn on the TV, and a lot of the music that you hear on these adverts now is bloody awful, and very, very. I was going to say primitive, but that's not the right word because that would insult primitive people. It's kind of very debased and just very, very simple and dark and not for me, mate. I'd rather listen to your '60s music than virtually anything around today. But you said yourself that, and I agree that rock music that first came about in the '50s, it was always set up with the intention of doing bad, not good. But ironically, I love it and I play it. So, but at the same time,
I don't think that's necessarily so. My dad used to call it jungle music. You youngsters keep listening to all this jungle music. But if you think about jungle music, the primitive music, the real primitive music, you've got a totally different. I can't talk about the science of it, but it just sounds different, doesn't it?
Very, very heavy on drums and rhythm.
Yeah,
I would say primitive music.
yeah, and you've got the very deep didgeridoo music from Australia.
The drone music, which is similar to Indian music as well.
The Indian music, the sitar music.
Ravi Shankar, yeah.
And it's far more spiritually enlightening than Western music.
Far more stimulating to the imagination as well.
Yeah, and I think what happened in the '60s, this music started to move towards that, not away from it.
Yep, absolutely.
So while we're on here, we've been chatting away amongst ourselves. We've got Catherine on. Anybody else on here got any experience of this?
Do
you know anything about sound healing?
My head is stuck in music now after that. I just wanted to add that I think they've brought us back down to earth, so to speak, with punk music in the late '70s, which was very, very, 3 chords at the most. So I think that's what punk music was all about. I still like some punk music and post-punk music, but sorry, Catherine Waldrum says, I feel we are analog beings in process of being digitalized. What a good comment. Yeah, totally agree. The digital sound is very clean, cold and clinical. I would say, in comparison to analog, which is a much warmer sound. So yeah, definitely we're moving away from, again, that's us moving towards transhumanism, I think, away from our humanity and onto sort of merging with AI and all that nonsense.
Yeah, I had Catherine on my Friday's show a couple of weeks ago. She's setting up a social media channel. Censorship free, which is fantastic. I've still got to get onto that, Catherine. I haven't had a chance to get back onto that, but I'm going to join that definitely. If I can get the technical side of it sorted out, as we discussed on the Friday show together. Do you have any sound healers on that, Catherine? Let me know if you've got any sound healers on that. I'll give it a couple of minutes to get back. I mean, this whole idea of a gong bath, this thing that I've been to today, that would have been unheard of here back in the 50s. It sort of came over. It started. I mean, my era. I feel very, very privileged because I've been here on this planet for the big events, the big moments in evolution of the human psyche. I mean, I was here for the hippie years, which had a very profound effect on me. And now I'm here for the transition to the age of Aquarius, to the new world, the new Earth. So yeah, I feel very, very blessed.
Funnily enough, Jack, when I was at that age you're describing, I would have been around in the 90s. And throughout the 90s, I listened to a lot of music from the 90s, but I always wished that I'd lived through that period of all the hippie music. I think the 90s were all about hedonism, whereas in the late 60s, when you had psychedelic music, there was a lot more to it than that, and they incorporated all the Indian music and jazz music and all sorts of music from different cultures and incorporated it into that psychedelic sound. It was a very, very interesting time to be alive. And I used to wish in the 90s that I'd been around then. But now, because of what we're living through at the moment, I'm really pleased that I'm going through. Well, I'm not pleased that I'm going through this, what everyone else is going through with the move towards transhumanism. But I'm glad that I'm here to witness it and to fight against it, I suppose, really.
Yeah. It started, the shift started, I think, I'm doing this from memory, around about the time the Beatles came back from India.
Yeah, late 60s. That would have been 66, I think they went with the Maharishi to the Himalayas. Yeah, late 60s.
And they came back with all these new ideas about music. Because their music completely changed at that time. From the very poppy, very light sort of music of the early 60s to the...
It changed radically in the space of 3 or 4 years. Their music completely changed from "She Loves You," yeah, to like real "Tomorrow Never Knows," isn't it? John Lennon at the end of the Revolver album. That song is like one chord, a drone, and it's one of the most. I would have loved to have been around when that record came out, "Tomorrow Never Knows," because it must have literally knocked people's heads off.
Like Catherine says,
one who uses sound. Yes, that's going back to something we were talking about previously, I think.
Yeah, one of the people on her social media platform uses sound.
Oh, good.
So can you get her on for next week, Catherine, to talk to us about it?
Yeah, we'd like to hear about that.
That'd be wonderful. He or she, I don't know which it is. That'd be absolutely wonderful. Yeah. Somebody knows a little bit more about it than Paul and me. We're just a couple of old hacks, aren't we, really? We research stuff to share with you all, but we're not experts in every field, obviously.
No.
And if we're very, very open to having guests on this show, and on the Friday show that I do as well, who can talk to us more knowledgeably about these subjects. Now, I don't know what it's saying here. I've got a note here saying that we can't post messages to some channels. I don't know what that means. No, I don't know what that means. Have you ever come across that one?
No, I can't see that.
No, it says learn more, just to see what it says here. Oh. Okay. Well, that's weird. Yeah, I don't know what that's all about, or why it would be. Apparently, Facebook's playing silly beggars again.
Can I tell you a quick story, Jack?
Go on.
Talking of Facebook, I turned my phone on the other morning and had some notifications, as you do. So I clicked onto Facebook, and immediately as I did that, there came up a message from Facebook, and it said, "Paul, are you okay? Are you feeling well? Do you need somebody to talk to? Contact us here." Because they've obviously been looking at my memes and stuff, and have thought, "Oh, he doesn't believe the official narrative on anything at all. He's clearly mentally unwell."
Are you sure that was from Facebook?
Yeah, it was 100%. I showed Nicola.
Anybody else experience anything like that?
Yeah, let us know if you. But that happened to me 3 days ago.
Yeah, all I ever get is your posts are now down the list for 90 days because you've been a naughty boy.
Yeah, I'm serving about 11 restrictions at the moment, so I'm down the bottom of the feed for about 3 years. I've worked out now. So I've just opened up a new account, as you know, Jack. So to try and get over that, and I've set up a new Nutrient Nirvana health and Nutrient Nirvana herbs and supplements group on Facebook. Anyone's welcome to join.
Yeah, and you want to tell people your new Facebook profile?
Oh yeah, that's Izas Manu, which is that's an interesting name, and that's
isn't it? You got that from
Ralph Ellis,
didn't you?
Yeah, that's the name of the historical Jesus Christ that he is found in the Syriac records. Moses of Quran talks about Edessa and Izas Manu and the Jewish revolt, and it's fascinating stuff. You can find him on my Nutrient Nirvana channel on YouTube. I'm actually researching for his new book, Jack. He's asked me to research for him.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so I'm looking up the Emessan kings at the moment because they were closely tied to the Edessan kings, both of which are in Syria. Yes, it's really, really interesting stuff.
Now, for the sake of viewers who aren't familiar with what we're talking about, Paul's been working with an author called Ralph Ellis, who has, shall we just say, unorthodox opinions about ancient history. Many different things, but mostly round about the 1st century CE, about the life of Jesus, who he was, and the various characters around that story. He places Jesus a little bit later than everybody else. He puts Jesus around about the middle of the 1st century instead of at the beginning of it.
Well, the gospel events took place between AD 68 and AD 70, which was the time of the Jewish revolt. And
according to Ralph Ellis,
he says that Jesus, or the historical Jesus, was one of the leaders of the Jewish revolt.
Yeah, he also claims that Jesus was an actual physical king, the king of Edessa.
Yep.
Which would explain explain when Jesus said, I don't come to bring peace, I come to bring a sword.
Mm-hmm.
It would explain that.
And the fact that he's referred.
I mean, personally, I keep an open mind about it. I think it's an interesting set of theories.
You have to read the books, mate. Read the books. There's so much more detail and evidence in the books. And I'm not somebody that swallows something, and just goes along with it for the sake of it. I've read the 4 books that he's written about the historical Jesus, and I've even read some Josephus Flavius now, which he was the historian alive in Judea at the time that Jesus lived, and a lot of what he's saying is backed up. A lot of what he's saying is backed up, and he's actually caused a lot of trouble, I should say, in these scholaristic, if that's the right word, the scholarly world.
Probably,
Yeah, with the academics and stuff, because he solved a 2,000-year-old problem basically, and they don't like it.
No, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I know a little bit about this because I've had the privilege of editing some of the videos that Paul's made with Ralph. But I haven't looked into it anywhere near as deeply as you have, Paul.
Well, the first book's called Cleopatra to Christ. So that's the first book. It's the first one of 4 books. That's the best place to start, mate, if you read that and go from there.
Yeah. So this character that you've now got a Facebook profile in the name of, Izas Manu. No, was it?
Yes, that's right. Izas Manu. Izas is short for Izates, but Josephus Flavius refers to him as Izas. And Manu...
Izas as in Jesus, and Manu as in Emmanuel.
Emmanuel. Yeah, which explains why there's this prophecy in the New Testament about Jesus being born and he will be called Emmanuel. And he's never referred to Emmanuel after that point ever again in the New Testament. It's always been a mystery. What does that mean? And this king is called Izas Manu of Edessa.
Yeah.
And he wore the crown that they wore had like spikes coming out of it, and it looks like a crown of thorns.
Okay.
There are so many smoking guns with this guy. There's definitely I think what they've done is they've conflated more than a few characters and have molded him into this Jesus Christ character, basically.
Yeah, I'm sure there were lots of different characters at that time that were active. And as you say, they've been conflated into one person by the church. Yeah, I mean, the Life of Brian hints at that, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And Ralph's a big fan of the Life of Brian, and he says out of all the films that have ever been made about that time and period, Life of Brian is probably the most accurate one.
Yeah.
And when I read the books, it reminded me of the guys standing in towers, looking at skylights, they're called, looking down and preaching to everyone, And you saw that in the Life of Brian. That was very much what you'd see in that area. There were all these people prophesying and, so yeah, the Life of Brian is quite a realistic picture of what it would have been like back in those days.
But I mean, you shoot me down in flames if you like. But I think where Ralph Ellis goes a little bit astray is he does try to synthesize them all down to this one character and say Jesus was this king of Edessa, instead of saying that one of the characters on which the Jesus is based was this king of Edessa.
Well, I've done a 3-part series. I've released the first one, The Many Names of Jesus. There's another 2 to follow. We talk about that specifically. And these Jesus sources, they come from 3 different sources, basically. They come from the Bible, the Gospels. They come from the historical record, Josephus Flavius, Moses of Chorene. And they come from the other one, what is it? Historical, Gospels, and the Talmud. Now, and the Talmud, I think there's 7 references to Jesus, but Ralph, he's not called Jesus because the Jews hated Jesus so much, they wouldn't even refer to him by name. Josephus Flavius hated Jesus so much that he wouldn't refer to him by his name. He wouldn't even mention Edessa. if you try and find out where Edessa was, and Edessa is very close to Judea, it's just beyond the Euphrates to the east. But there's no mention of Edessa in Josephus's works, in the Bible. It's because it's been deliberately deleted out of history, because they didn't want you to know who the real Jesus was. And that's
anybody wants to look further into this, go on to, I'll put the links down below in the description.
Yeah, brilliant. These fascinating videos.
Yeah, go on to Paul's channel, his Nirvana channel, and all the videos are on there. They're fascinating reading. As I say, I'm not 100% convinced, but they're certainly eye-opening stuff.
I'd love it if you read the books, mate.
The other thing that bothers me just a little bit about Ralph is he's tried to put King Arthur back 500 years and set him in the Holy Land at that time. Yeah, there may be an element of truth in that, but at the same time, that doesn't invalidate the 6th century version that we all know and love.
Well, just point one thing out. I'll just point one thing out about that. If I haven't done this, but if you read the Vulgate cycle, which is over 5,000 or 11,000 pages long, something ridiculous, King Arthur is hardly mentioned. The main hero of the Vulgate cycle and the Arthurian stories is Joseph of Arimathea.
Yeah.
And Joseph of Arimathea was the guy that took Jesus down from the cross in the Gospels. So, and a lot of the names in Arthurian legend have roots in Aramaic. So there's definitely something going on there as well. I think what happened was, because if you try to tell the real story of Jesus centuries after it happened, you'd be burned at the stake. So they had to tell they told the story, but they put it in a different setting, different names, etc., to conceal the real identity of who these people were. And like I say, if you read the books, that particular book you're talking about is called the Grail Cipher. If you read that, there's a lot of evidence in there to suggest that what he's saying is accurate.
Yeah, but that still doesn't make century Arthur who fought against the Saxons.
Well, I think there was an author called Alan Wilson, a Welsh.
Both can be true. And Geoffrey of Monmouth probably picked from both different stories and amalgamated them into one story.
Possibly. So, like I say, if you talked about the real story of Jesus in Edessa, incidentally, when the Templars went on their first crusade in the 11th century, they went straight through Jerusalem, didn't stop. They went straight to Edessa. That's historical fact. That's the first place they went to, and they came back, and that's when all the Arthurian stories started to come out around that time. And so, what Ralph is saying is that you couldn't tell the truth about this, otherwise you'd be burned at the stake. So you had to conceal the truth. You had to tell the story, but with different names for the characters and in a different setting and in a different era, to avoid being burned at the stake.
Right, can you read out what
I certainly can. A good comment from Catherine Waldrum here. Neville Goddard taught that Jesus and the disciples relate to the planetary alignments. I'm starting to agree in that the physical person arrives in time of certain planetary alignments which appear at certain times. So it would be interesting to see what the alignment was at this time. Well, we were just going into the age of Pisces, Catherine, the Fisher King. I'm no expert, just going off instinct thoughts. Yeah, so the frequencies, vibrations of these times may be the same as then and allow for the birthing of Christ consciousness. What are your thoughts? I would largely agree with that. I think that's bang on. I think there's loads of astrotheology in the Bible as I understand it, the stories and the parables and all these things in the Bible, there's multi layers of meaning to them. It's a fascinating book that I would have completely disregarded 20 years ago or something, but now I find it absolutely fascinating. And Jesus was the Fisher King, and that was because he was born as we moved out of Aries into Pisces. And now, as I understand it, we're moving out of Pisces and into Aquarius. So what you just said there, Catherine, is spot on as far as I understand it. Absolutely 100%. But the Jesus was a real person at the same time, but his story has largely and deliberately been lost to history.
I think there's a lot of stuff been lost to history, and as you say, deliberately.
Yep. Virtually everything.
So who was the Pope that changed the Bible, decided what to leave in and what to put in and what to leave out?
Oh, began with C. The Council of Nicaea. The Council of Nicaea. Was it Constantine the Third?
It was Constantine the Third, wasn't it?
Yeah.
To come up with an official narrative. Where have we heard that before? That everyone was going to be taught, and all the truths that were not convenient were left out.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So that's absolutely spot on. Like, basically, the Church of Saul is Christianity, not the Church of Jesus and James, his brother. So the Christians now are actually worshipping the enemy of Jesus, who was Saul. Saul, why are you persecuting me?
This is why I first got interested in Ralph Ellis, because he said something that I've been saying for years, all about the Saul or Saint Paul character. And to me, Paul or Saul, whatever you want to call him, the official narrative doesn't ring true to me, that he was blinded on the road to Damascus. That just looks to me like a con.
Allegory?
No, con. To infiltrate the Nazarenes, the Church of Jesus of James.
Right.
To pretend that you've been blinded, Jesus has spoken to you, this dead Jesus has spoken to you, you've been blinded. So they'll take you in, and then to over a period of years to take over the whole organization and move it to Rome under the yoke of the Roman Empire. That doesn't add up to me.
No, I get what you're saying. I know that Ralph conflates the Saul character with Josephus Flavius. He says they're the same person.
Okay.
And he's not the first person to have said that. The guy that translated the first English guy to translate Josephus Flavius's works into English was a guy called William Whiston, and he made the same observation that whoever he said that the hand of Josephus is extremely similar to Saul, and they both had the same publisher as well. They both had the same publisher. They were both on the same shipwreck, which is mentioned in the Gospels. There are so many similarities in their life story. They were both Pharisees who were against circumcision, which is not what the Pharisees were about. So they were kind of rebel Pharisees. So many different things that they had in common. So I've always been moderately interested in the New Testament because I went to a church school as a kid, and was completely like, what is this all about? This makes no sense to me. 7-year-old kid, a very strange story. Every day I had to go into the assembly room and there was Jesus on the cross, and you're thinking, what's all this about as a 7-year-old? But now that I know there's some actual history going on, I'm finding it extremely interesting. So, yeah.
Well, many years ago, I started to write a book, and I didn't finish it because I don't have Ralph Ellis's skills or knowledge that I would have needed to finish the book. But the book was going to be called St. Paul's secret agent.
Which is what he was.
And it was making out that he was
Yeah.
an agent for the Roman Empire.
He switched sides. He was I think the right word is proselyte. A proselyte, somebody that would just switch sides to suit his own agenda.
Yeah.
A bit like Winston Churchill, if you like, because he was a liberal, wasn't he? Then he went to the Conservatives. And he was a very, very, not a very nice character at all, Josephus Flavius. He was very boastful, and he showed off a lot and lied a lot about things. And you can't really trust a lot of what he's saying. You have to read between the lines and investigate it for yourself. And that can take centuries to do, So it's I just find it a fascinating subject. And I do think Ralph has... If you don't accept all of Ralph's conclusions, at the very least, I think he's revealed some things that we weren't aware of, like Odessa. Who had heard of Odessa prior to Ralph's books and stuff? Very, very few people.
Can you spell Odessa so people can look it up?
Edessa.
Okay.
Ede. It's now Sanliurfa in Turkey, but in those days it was part of Syria, just beyond the Euphrates River.
I mean, I have great respect for anybody's religious beliefs, and I certainly don't want to insult anybody's religious beliefs. But I do tend to have a different take on things than the mainstream, not just about all the things that have been going on over the last couple of years, but about the first century as well. I mean, we've just had Easter, which to me and probably to you, Paul, is a rite of spring in honor of the goddess Ostara. But to the Christians, it's the time when Jesus was resuscitated. Oh, sorry, I mean resurrected.
I saw a good meme the other day, Jack, on that subject. It said, "Jesus died for your sins," and then somebody said, "But he rose again after 3 days." And then the first person said, "Jesus gave up his weekend for your sins."
Yeah, no,
if there's any Christians out there, by the way, we're just we're not.
I mean, I don't want to knock anybody's religious beliefs, but to me, if you're cut down from an execution device before you're quite dead and taken off to a tomb, and the bloke who owns the tomb takes in healing herbs, not embalming herbs, and 3 days later you walk out of that tomb, that's the resuscitation.
And also allegorically, it's the a Freemason ritual, the 3rd degree ritual, where back in the day you would be put in a tomb, and you would have to be solely reliant on your brother Masons to release you from that tomb. Otherwise, there was no getting out. And Ralph also says that Jesus was a Freemason, and he says that because the Bible refers to him as a tekton, and that's been deliberately mistranslated as meaning carpenter, when in actual fact it means a mason. It can mean a stonemason or a Freemason. So, but it's just, could go on talking about this, mate, for days. It's a fascinating subject. So much history being revealed.
Yeah, but people have very get very emotional about religious things. So, I certainly don't want to disrespect anybody's religious beliefs. If you believe differently, then, I can respect that without necessarily sharing your beliefs.
Absolutely.
I used to get into a lot of trouble as a kid in RE lessons because none of what I was being taught made any sense to me. And I used to ask awkward questions. And we got through, I can't remember, we got through a different RE teacher almost every term. And I think I was largely responsible.
Well, it certainly doesn't try and explain Christianity to a kid, a 9-year-old kid or something. It's a bloody hard job trying to make sense out of all that, isn't it? I mean, there's some lovely parables, and some of Jesus's sayings and teachings in the New Testament are brilliant. I like the one about, we're talking about religion. I like the one about when Jesus said, you don't need to be like the priests in the temple that make a big thing out of worshipping God. You can go into your room at home, close the door, and pray in private without virtue signaling, and God will love you all the more for doing that.
The other thing I just want to say, because we're running out of time, I just want to say before we close, that one of the most upsetting things to have happened by the church, by Constantine III, was this conflating the idea of Jesus and Christ. They've even started to talk about Jesus Christ as if Christ was his surname. They're two totally different concepts. Jesus was a man who lived sometime in the 1st century, or maybe several men who lived sometime in the 1st century. Christ is a whole level of consciousness, which is believed in and called by different names in many, many different religions, not just in Christianity. Certainly in Buddhism and Hinduism and Taoism. And to conflate those into one person, into thinking that because we're going to get a Christ consciousness coming in, that there's going to be Jesus coming back. It's just mixing up the whole two different ideas and confusing the whole issue. The whole business of the age of Aquarius and moving into the new earth is the dawning of Christ consciousness. It doesn't mean the king of Odessa is going to come back, or whoever he was.
Yeah.
Or Brian, or whoever he was, is going to come back. It's not about the man. It's about a whole different level of consciousness, 5th dimensional consciousness, which is what my Friday show is all about, co-creating the new earth together.
Do you completely and utterly agree with that idea, Jack?
How do you mean?
Do you agree that we're going to get 5th dimensional consciousness?
It's happening now.
How is it happening?
So, tell me why you don't believe in it.
I didn't say I didn't believe it. I just wanted to know what your thoughts were. I can see from we're definitely moving into a new age, Aquarius. We've had the birth of the internet, which has definitely enhanced a lot of our knowledge on things. There's definitely a mass awakening going on because of the weakness and our governments being so hopeless at what they're doing. They're red pilling people all the time. So from that point of view, I can see that it's all kind of moving towards something. Whether that's 5th dimensional consciousness or not, I don't know. I mean, how would you explain it scientifically?
I wouldn't. It doesn't matter what you call it, does it? I don't. I mean, people are calling it the age of Aquarius. People are calling it the new earth. People are calling it 5th dimensional consciousness. To me, I don't care what label you put on it. There's definitely a shift. And although everybody isn't coming with us, there's been a huge shift since the hippie era. It's been going on for a long time. Towards more love, towards more inclusiveness, towards people are starting to see through the illusion of separateness, to realize that we're all one, That's what I mean by fifth dimensional consciousness.
When you say we're all one, that could be interpreted in different ways, couldn't it? We are all one. We're all the same. We're a big collective.
No, I didn't say we're all the same. The way I describe it in my book, quick plug for the book, Love Not Fear, it's my book. You can get a free download off my website, lovenotfear.uk. The way I describe it, and I mentioned this last week, I think, as well. If you can imagine a whole load of islands in the ocean.
A whole load of what, sorry?
Islands in the ocean.
Islands, yep.
All these separate islands, yeah, in the ocean. Separate? Really? If you magically take away the water or you go diving, what you've actually got is a mountain range with peaks. And I believe that's Uzlot. Different peaks of consciousness in one continuous mountain range.
Individual.
That's what I mean when I say we're all one.
Individual.
I then go on to, hang on, let me just finish this. I then go on to say that I believe we are all individual manifestations of the one. So we're all different. We're all individuals. It's just you've got to believe. You've got to understand. I don't want to say I'm pig-headed here. I'm going to say I'm pig-headed. But if you want to understand this kind of stuff, let's bring it down to that level. You want to understand stuff. You've got to be able to reconcile opposites, apparent opposites, and see how they come up with an idea in your head that enables them both to be true. And it's this idea that, we're all
unique expressions.
Unique expressions of the one. And you can call the one the universe. You can call the one God. You can call the one the is. You call it what you like. We're all individual. You can call it the universal mind or the universal consciousness. And to me, we're all individual peaks, individual expressions of that one universal consciousness. Does that make sense?
Glad we cleared that up. I totally agree. I just noticed about maybe, 10, 15 years ago on the underground in London, you would see these posters. Usually it would be like a grey alien, a picture of a grey alien, and the words underneath would say, "We are one." And I that gave me the creeps. But explained how you just explained that idea, I would totally concur with that.
Yeah, I mean, you take the idea beyond human beings. I'm not just talking about people. Me and that cat over there are one. We're one with people who live on other planets. We're one with beings who have never been incarnate. We're all different expressions, different points of focus within the mind of God. That's the way I see it.
Yep. Me too.
And I'm not saying anybody has to agree with me.
I do.
I think it was the Buddha that said, I can't remember word for word, basically do your own research. Don't believe anything that you hear, even if I've said it, unless it also gels within you.
Yep.
Something like that you said. I can't remember exactly. Oh, Catherine agrees. Brilliant.
Yep.
What was the thing Catherine said before? We didn't read it out.
Stop us looking inside, keeps us looking outside ourselves.
Well, I think that's the problem, isn't it? That's the whole divide and conquer game. Get back to my book again. It's what I call the game we did not devise, based on a pack of lies. And it's all designed to keep us in fear and to keep us separate. this illusion of separateness.
Mm.
And that's what, instead of looking inside, we look outside.
I'm seeing a lot of that at the moment. I'm seeing a lot of stuff on social media, online about looking inside rather than out, and doing the shadow work, and that's all really positive, because we've mentioned before that there's probably very few, if any, people in this world at the moment that hasn't suffered some form of trauma in the past, and that has a big effect on the world in general. And so if we can all start looking inside and doing the shadow work, that in itself will manifest a better future.
Trauma is such a terrible, terrible thing. It stops people being fully themselves. It keeps people living in fear. And we've all been traumatized to one extent or another, either in our childhood or growing up or in marriages or whatever. We've all been traumatized. Everyone's traumatized. Okay, quick shout out to our friend Juliet Yelverton. If you want to learn about trauma, go to Healing Waters. I keep posting her stuff on my Facebook, so she's a great source of information on that if you want to go and find out more about trauma. And she's starting her this year's year-long advanced trauma healing workshop soon. So get involved in that. And yeah, you'll find all the links on my Facebook about that. Anything you want to add to that, Paul, before we close?
Not really, mate, to be honest. I think I'll tell you what, we'll call this episode the Jesus episode, if you like, because we talked a lot about Jesus. I've really enjoyed it.
Sound healing, Jesus and Christ.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what I'm going to call it.
Brilliant, mate. Well done. Well done.
Great.
Yeah,
So please like and share, everybody, on Facebook or on YouTube, wherever you're watching. And don't forget, I also do a show on a Friday. So I'm always looking for guests to come on that show and tell me what they've been doing. I had Catherine on a little while ago, and she was brilliant. No, we've done that bit.
She's just thanked us as well. Thanks both. Enjoyed this. Thank you, Catherine. I enjoyed it too.
Let's hope you come on again and tell your friends, tell all your friends. I say all the links about the things we've discussed will be in the description on the YouTube version of this. So just reminds me to thank my great co-host, Paul Simon Smith, and Catherine, and everybody who's watching live and who's going to watch the replay later. Namaste.